We got a hot topic for you today. So, in No More Mr. Nice Guy, Robert Glover talks about how some radical feminists in the 60s and 70s claimed that men were the cause of all the problems in the world. Or some said that men were merely an unnecessary nuisance, and that he felt this contributed to a climate where that men were convinced that it was not okay to be just who they were. Basically, that radical feminism is partly responsible for us being nice guys, for the nice guy syndrome. So that's our topic today. Welcome to the Nice Guy Show. I'm your host, Ari Graff. I'm here with my co-hosts, Chuck and Faisal. Our mission is to help men with nice guy syndrome level up. All right, guys, did feminism make you a nice guy? Chuck, I want to start with you. You're a little older than us.
As we were just discussing off camera. Yes.
Yeah.
Did
feminism make you a nice guy?
I mean, I definitely, I'm like, was a kid in the 70s around like kind of the hot time of women burning their bras. And there was a lot of, feminism and all of that was in the news media. And I remember seeing some of that as a kid. And I think it definitely had an impact. I think it had an impact in terms of there started to be this villainization of this idea of men and masculinity, and that, being a man was bad. And that was really kind of a message that I remember hearing growing up was, don't be like other men. Don't be, aggressive or, demanding, those kind of things, which just are all good things. But it also sort of like threw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of all of the great things that masculinity brings. So yeah, I think it definitely had an impact on me personally, and I think the culture at large. So I don't know what it was like in the UK, but maybe Faisal can shine some light on that.
I mean, well, you grew up partly in Pakistan, right?
Yeah, so I grew up until the age of 7, and then I moved to the UK. And so nice guy syndrome, is it a problem in the West? No. Feminism, it wasn't. Does feminism make nice guys, more feminine? Yes, it does. If men take on the feminine template of life, right? So if men adopt the feminine way, then it makes them very, feminine. And the feminists did, again, like Chuck said, the message was, it's wrong being a male. You're wrong. You're a problem. And everything was focused on everything that made me male was, okay, this is painful. This is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. And you shouldn't be showing a lot of things about boys and men. I remember there was an advert here as well, boys will be boys, as in that's a bad thing. So the message is everything that's male is wrong, and everything that's pro-female is the way to be for both men and women.
Yeah. I think it's been this combat, I think it's just been, the battle of the sexes, right? I mean, it's like the men versus women, and we tend to kind of divide along those lines. And the idea then is like one is better than the other. There's this competition to see, is feminism better or is masculinism better? And the truth is like not one's better than the other. They're different, and they both have value, and they both have shadow sides. But for whatever reason, we humans want to have a winner. One is better than the other, which I think makes it difficult for two things to kind of coexist with each other. So feminism, in terms of like the feminine, isn't wrong. Neither is masculinism in terms of the masculine energy. Neither is wrong. They both have benefits and they both have shadows. It's just which one we focus on. Are we going to focus on the negative aspects of either one of those, and then the positive aspects of the other? And then when it's like, look at all the bad things that men do, and look at all the great things that women do, and then it becomes this argument back and forth. And then I think at the end, like nobody really wins. People in general lose out as a result of either ideology.
Yeah, you get on both sides as well, don't you? And I remember when I visited Pakistan not long ago, and I did notice that there was a stronger narrative towards, feminism ideology, and men are wrong. There was like a real distinction between, we're strong, independent women. We deserve to be free, and we deserve to have this. I totally understand that. There is suppression in, I would say, opportunities. What came with it was that, and I was listening to this podcast, and one of the guys was saying that he realized that he was in a relationship with a very strong feminist, and when they went to couples therapy, she said something that really shocked him. She said, what's troubling us is not because I want you to be more feminist. What's troubling us is that I want you to be more masculine. Mm-hmm. And he thought he had to play down his traits of being assertive, knowing what he wants, because he thought, like assertiveness, knowing what he wants, saying no, was associated with being controlling, dominant. And that's a message he was hearing. And his wife said, she goes, I want those traits in you. I want to feel those. I want to see that you be strong. And I think what's happened is that, I had all these messages. I don't know if you did as well, Ari and Chuck, but these messages of when you're assertive, when you're strong, you're quickly labeled as controlling. But if a woman does the same thing, she's labeled as a strong, independent woman. It's like, go girls, girl power. So it was really confusing. Like, where do I stand?
I think that's
are you two guys going to talk at the same time?
Well, I think one of the things you guys have been bringing up is just that traditional traits that are thought of as traditionally masculine have been pathologized by some feminists. And so that's something that sort of the men's movement has had a reaction to, I think, in the last 30 years or so. So we need to kind of reclaim things like leadership and aggression, assertiveness, as positive things, that at least that they can take positive forms, and not pathologize masculinity. So I think that's a correction that's been happening. I think, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this topic of this episode was because I still identify as a feminist in a lot of ways. And I think that comes from, my college education, my grad school education, and learning about what women have gone through historically and the inequities that have been there. And that feminism as a movement, and it's been, a different movement over time. It's gotten some important things for women and other marginalized groups. It's done things like increase access to education, the right to vote, workplace discrimination, equitable pay, having choice around healthcare decisions. So there's been all kinds of ways that feminism as a movement has been helpful for our culture and really hasn't hurt men. It's really just leveled the playing field. So I think that's part of why I felt uncomfortable being critical of feminism and really embracing my masculinity. So I think this is a way that feminism, for me, I think has gotten in the way of me recovering from being a nice guy, is because it questions these kind of traditional masculine traits. And so it made it harder for me to just really embrace them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's funny, the other day, my wife and I were driving, and she was talking about this baby shower that she actually went to yesterday, but this was a week ago. She's talking about a baby shower she was going to go to. And I jokingly said, there's at least one good thing about being a man then, in that I didn't have to go to a baby shower. And she said, she's like, one good thing. She's like, everything about being a man is good. Like, being a man is so much better than being a woman. And I'm thinking, is it? And she's like, yeah, we have to. And she was just kind of going down this laundry list of all the things that women have to do that men don't do. You know, she was bringing up housework as kind of a thing. She's like, you don't even know half of the things that I do. You don't even see that I'm doing around the house. And
it drives me crazy.
I know. and I was like, okay, yeah, probably they are, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that I do that you don't see. And, you know, she said, well, there probably are. But the point was that as I was thinking about it,
are you having flashbacks to marriage right now?
A little bit of flashback. What I started thinking about though was that as a man, I think about all of the sort of negative things, like, okay, I gotta provide for my family, which means I gotta go out into the world and kill and create a career and go out and, you know, just crush that, make money. I've gotta, you know, always take care of myself, and, you know, just this sort of laundry list that came up. And I was thinking of like all of the problems that being a man causes, and she was thinking about all of the problems that being a woman causes. And so we're comparing our problems to see which one of us is the bigger victim, you know? And yeah. I think that's the other side of it, that we'll say, you know, this is, you know, being a man is better than being a woman, or vice versa. And then we'll also go back and we'll say, well, being a man is harder than being a woman. And women will say being a woman is harder than being a man. And we all have our own experiences. They're just different. And I think that causes us a lot of conflict because we're arguing from our own perspective. Whereas the truth is, being a human is hard, you know, and being a woman is hard, and being a man is hard. Absolutely. You know, but it's one.
Isn't that an attitude? Because
sure.
Yeah, it's like, well, I remember there's guys who say, well, being brown's really hard. And, you know, when people are talking about privileges, it's like, well, if you're, I was listening to a lady on a podcast, and she was saying, if you're white and you're female and you're in the West, she said, you are in a much stronger position than, say, if you're of color and you're a male. And she said, you tell me what privileges you do not have as a white woman in the West. That, you know, what will you be discriminated against? Your gender? Yeah, sure. But there's lots of women that are coming. So I think no matter where you are, you're always going to find some struggle. And then, yes, there's been lots of men who had to fight to get to the top. And does that mean just because you're a woman that you shouldn't have that fight to get to the top? And I think this is some of the message that I noticed as well, because we want equal rights. Okay, cool. Both of you, absolutely. We all should have our equal rights to access resources. But it doesn't mean that we stopped having to fight for them, because we all have to compete to get to the top. And the one with the strongest attitude will get to the top. And there's many people, you know, I was thinking about this. There's many examples of you can have, like, this is negative, and there's many examples you can have positive. I mean, look at Oprah Winfrey, a black woman who was completely poor, nothing, becomes a billionaire. So you're telling me of somebody of color, of status, can't access that, can't get that? So it comes down to attitude and consistency and that passion and drive for it.
Well, this is where I think people can not see the nuance, because I still, you know, there's structural oppression still out there for women, maybe less so in the West, but definitely in many parts of the world, women are less advantaged. And, you know, like in our country, African Americans, there's structural disadvantages that they experience. They're much more likely to be in prison, for example, or experience police harassment than a white person. That is a real part of their experience. So women still have disadvantages that are part of the structure. But at the same time, I think what you're saying, Faisal, is people don't have to adopt a victim mentality too. So we can both acknowledge sort of structural differences, power dynamics, while still not adopting a victim mentality. So I think some feminists nowadays, especially, you know, are prone to blaming any person who's in a more privileged position, whether you're white or male, for their experience in life. So I think you can hold both in mind. That's part of what we have to do as mature people, is hold two different ideas in mind. But I think anytime you're just always in victim mode, there's something wrong with that.
Yep. There's there's a lot of generalizations out there, I think, as well, that sort of like create stigmas around whether it's a person of color or a person of sexual orientation, all of these different things, all these things that make us different. It's kind of this, I want to be celebrated for my differences, and I want to be equal for everyone, to everyone. It's like, it's really difficult to give somebody both of those things of say, oh, you're different and you're equal, but that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to define what equality is and then celebrate our differences. So feminists celebrate the difference of being feminine. People of color celebrate their individual color. People of sexual orientation celebrate their sexual orientation. We're all different, and yet we're all equal, but it's really difficult for one side to see the other side as being equal or not being repressive, because they feel like my differences are being attacked rather than celebrated by the other people who have differences than me. And it just becomes this cluster of people arguing about things that in many ways are just these first world problems that we have, rather than like looking for solutions to really be helpful to the rest of the world and to understand there's suffering no matter where you go. And what we really need to be focused on. Yeah, we really need to be focusing on how do we prevent suffering for others, instead of arguing like I'm better or I'm worse than somebody else. Yeah. And we're just focusing on the wrong things.
So how do we as guys get our balls back then? Because on my nice guy recovery, I found that I had too much of the feminine template, and that caused me a lot of confusion, frustration. And in No More Mr. Nice Guy, one of the chapters is reclaim your masculinity, be proud of the essence, unapologetically what makes you male, and be pro-male. And by being pro-male doesn't mean that I need to put down anything else on that. So, I need to put anything down in order to rise. And that's something that, I've learned and I grappled with, especially when you have the red pill movement as well. And the red pill movement is exactly the opposite of, the feminist movement. And again, they're battling with each other. You're wrong. We're in more victim mode. So my question was asking you guys is like, what did you guys do to get your balls back?
Well, I had to, I don't think I found it in traditional therapy. I think I found it by looking more in sort of the men's coaching world. I think the manosphere has some toxic messages, and there's just as much victimhood in the manosphere as you might find with some feminists. So I think the type of coaching, the No More Mr. Nice Guy recovery approach, is really pro male. It's teaching men masculine traits, things that we're not often taught growing up as boys. So and really reframing these as positive. So I think we're already part of the solution.
I think the other thing is just like coming to terms with, it's good to be a man and it's good to be a woman. It's good to be non-binary. It doesn't really matter what other people think. It's about what you decide for yourself works for you. And I think what happens is we get into the idea of something's better than something else. And a long time ago, I had a guy describe it to me this way. And he was talking about the masculine and feminine. And he said, so you take a diamond ring, for example, and it's made out of gold or platinum or something like that. What's better, the gold or the diamond? You know, well, if you take the gold away, you don't have a ring anymore. But if you take the diamond away, you don't have a diamond ring anymore. You know, one's not better than the other. They both serve a different purpose. One is structural and it holds it up, and the other one is beautiful in that it enhances the beauty. And I thought it was kind of a good analogy, and it's got some flaws in it, but that neither is better, but we both serve a purpose. And when you take masculine and feminine and put them together, you have something better than one of them on their own.
Yeah, I like that. And one of the things I found that really helped me and helps a lot of guys I work with is to reclaim our true essence, is what feels natural to us. And that means that, you know, step one is unlearning the feminine way. And one of the things I learned was it's okay to be competitive. You know, that competitive is a very strong masculine trait, and it's okay to have that. It's okay to want to be angry, but in a controlled way, that I'm taking out, say, boxing or martial arts. It's okay to like all of those things, because I know my kids, I've got 2 boys, and they grew up and they love guns and fighting and things like that, and their mums are like, no, don't get in, you know, don't do this. But I'm like, it's the most natural essence. You know, I love weapons, I love guns, I love all of these things. And it feels, you know, when you pick up when you do all of that stuff, it raises your testosterone. I love fast cars, I love all of the aspect of it, and it's okay to love that. What I learned was that all of that part of masculinity it's the immature part of my masculinity, or immature part of masculinity that was the problem. The same thing as immature femininity was the problem. And that's what's highlighted by, you know, all social media. And I got trapped into this as well. I started to see all the negative side of it. And then, you know, our brain is designed to be, to have an enemy. So whether it's rich or poor, whether it's male or female, whether it's you know, south side or west side, there's always an enemy, and our brain is always looking for the enemy, and it's easy to get wrapped up in that. And I think this is what a lot of people are doing. They're getting wrapped up in finding the enemy and then having a fight with it.
All right, we're gonna end there. This is a great discussion. I think what we're talking about here is promoting a conscious masculinity. And feminism has brought a lot of gifts to the world, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of a mature, conscious masculinity. And we're going to keep promoting that here on The Nice Guy Show. So if you like this podcast, check out episode number 24, The Unattractive Truth About Men with Mummy Issues. And if you like our show, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. This helps us reach out to more men who need support. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you subscribe there as well. Go to niceguyshow.com to get on the mailing list, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show with certified Nice Guy recovery coaches Ari Graff, Chuck Chapman, and Faisal Kokar. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can listen to our latest episodes, and visit us on www.theniceguyShow.com. If you have any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, send us an email at support@theniceguyShow.com. Thanks for listening.